What would you say if I could expand your chord knowledge and you only had to lift one finger? Today I'm going to show you very easy ways to play simple and not so simple guitar chords. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to this episode of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitar player that you always wanted to be. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. We're going to do some fun, easy chord stuff today. Not just for beginners either. There's some ideas for everybody here. Some you may know, some you may not. But we're going to have some fun anyway. Learning chords is really, really tough at first. And it can be a real letdown for a lot of guitar dreamers who just picture themselves effortlessly jamming the rest of their life away on stage in front of millions of people. Right away, we all learn that this is not going to be the easiest attempt at learning something new, right? The guitar with 6 strings and then so many frets, the guitar gets complicated very quickly. So most players, what do we learn first? We learn open position chords first, right? Right away, you see that that's a limitation. Okay, we're learning the things in just one area. There's all this stuff we could learn on the guitar, but we're learning everything down here in open position. It's a limitation. It's a good thing with the guitar, especially. Let's just focus on this area of the guitar for now. When it comes to guitar, limiting an area of focus, it's a very good thing. If we all tried to learn chords all over the fretboard at first, I'm sure the failure rate, the ratio of the players that either quit or who keep on, that rate would be drastically higher. So today, for players of all levels, we're going to increase the limitation. Whenever I can do that, I know something good's going to happen. I get excited for the big wins ahead when I limit myself with some things. So today, we're going to learn all about one finger chords and how we can get a lot of simple and not so simple chords just from using this one finger on the guitar. So let's start off with the easy one finger guitar chords first, the ones that you would see in open position, for example. So the one everybody loves, if I had to take a poll with all of my students, their favorite guitar chord in the beginning, it's usually E minor 7. Right? So basically you're putting your first finger on the second. This is in standard tunings, on the second fret of the A string and strumming all the other notes. And I always say, well, why is that your favorite favorite chord? And they say, because it's easy, right? But the next one in open position, the next chords that we can use our one finger with are the 5th chords, right? Root and 5. Put that same finger down on the second fret on the A string and only play the E string in the A string. There you go. There's your kind of E power chord, right? You can double that. You could lay that across and get the other E on the second fret as well on the D string. But, you only need 2 for the power chords, right? And you can move that finger now to the next string. So now we're going to play the open A string and then the second fret on the D string. There's your A5 chord, your A power chord. Okay, and let's keep it going here. We can do one more with this too. Super easy one finger chords, and that's the D5. So we'll play the D open string and then the second fret on the G string. Write whole songs with this. And then finish with your E minor 7th chord. So listen to that. We're already using this stuff. Haven't only used my first finger. So we're off to a good start. Easy stuff. Let's find, there's some other ones that we could open up here using one finger, but now let's limit ourselves to the top 3 strings. That's the G string, the B string, and the high E string. So if you put your first finger on the first fret of the B string and only played the top 3 strings, 2 open and 1 fret, it's the very top of a C major chord. In fact, it has all the notes we need for a C major chord. It's got the C in the middle, the G lower, and then the high E string, C, E, and G. So we don't need to have the full C chord for it to function correctly. So 1 finger, first fret on G string, play the top 3 strings. You got your C chord. How about the G chord? So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our first finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string and then play the G and the B strings open. So what do we got here? We've got G, B, and G. We're missing the D. But this is, it's 2 of 3 notes of a G chord. You could get away with that. That could help, especially if you have some other instruments in the band that could get you there. So how about the top 3 strings for a G7 chord? So what we've done, and also something I want to say before I move on, that last chord was missing the 5th of the chord. We had the 1st, the 3rd, and then we had a double of the 1st. A lot of times, especially you get into jazz and things where you don't want to play all of the notes of the chords. There's kind of a hierarchy of notes that you can get rid of over time. And the 5th is the first note that you can get rid of. You don't have to play the 5th of the chord for it to function. So let's see here. Now we're at G7. We're going to take that E string and we're going to play the 1st fret now. So that's the top notes of a G7 chord. That's open G, B, and then F. That's the flat 7th for the G7. We can also do the E chord. We put our first finger on the G string on the 1st fret and then play the G string, B string, and high E string. We've got the top of our E chord there. So just from those chords along, C, G, G7, then we can go to E. Only using one finger, working our way through a bunch of different chords. So let's see here. What's another one in open position that's super easy? The middle 3 open strings. That's the D string, the G string, and the B string. If you play all of those open, you've got a G major chord. Now, we're not using any fingers with these, but as we start talking about barring notes, we can use one finger to play all of those at the top of the guitar, an octave higher. So that would be the G, the B, the D, the G, and the B strings up at the 12th fret. Another one that we can play is we can take that E major chord that we learned before, and then we can add the low string to that. So kind of an offset. You might want to pluck the low E string and then play those top 3 strings with your first finger on the 1st fret of the G string, and then you get a little bit fuller E major chord. These are things that people who've been playing for a while may have known about. Maybe some of them you haven't. Let's get into something a little bit different. So now we're going to move into section 2. This is barred shapes. So the one we just played, the G at the 12th fret, we can move that anywhere. So if we took our first finger, one finger, and we bar it across the 12th fret, that's a G string. But what if we slid that down to the 2nd fret? That's where we would normally play our A chord. So either A at the 2nd fret, B at the 4th, C at the 5th, D at the 7th, E at the 9th, F at the 10th, back to G at the 12th. So you can get all of your major chords just by barring those 3 strings right there. Okay, so now the next one we're going to do easy, and we're going to start getting away from just major and minor sounds. Here's our major 7th sounds. So we're going to bar the top 3 strings with our first finger at the 2nd fret. Then we can play the open D string as well. Right? So basically we have a D, an A, F sharp, and then C sharp. So it's a very nice, almost a Chili Peppers under the bridge type sound. But another thing we can do is we can slide this bar on the top 3 strings and with one finger, and we can see, let's slide it around where we can maybe take advantage of some of the other open strings we have. We just did the D. We have a D open string, and then add that to this chord. But what if we tried to do that with an A? So what fret could I slide this to make it an A major 7th sound? The 9th fret. So if you played an open A string and then your first finger on the G, B, and E, high E strings across, there's your A major 7th. And we can do the same thing with E major 7th. We'll play the open E string, and then at the 4th fret, we'll use our bar right there. We'll slide our first finger down, and that gives us a B, a D sharp, that's the major 7th in E, and then a G sharp, that's the 3rd. So pretty neat if I played all those. Let's see here. Starting to sound a little bit different than just regular open position chords. Okay, let's move on from there. That was a lot of fun. Let's talk about maybe doing a little bit more complicated chords that are just using the first finger. So if you take your first finger on the 3rd fret and go straight across, the D, the B, the D, the G, the B, and the high E string, all at the 3rd fret, you are making a G minor 7th chord. Well, let's check that out. What are the notes in G minor 7th? G, B, flat, D, and F. Let's see what we got. We got the F as the low note on the D string at the 3rd fret. Then we got our B flat on the G string on the 3rd fret. We have a D, 3rd fret on the B string, and then we have a G on the high E string, 3rd fret. So if you had a one finger, I'm just doing the octave on the 15th. But those same notes, G, B flat, D, and F, can also be another chord, right? So it can be a B flat major 6th. So if you have a bass player playing B flat and you play those same notes, here I'll put the B flat down. Hear the quality of the chord change. Here it was before with the G as the bass. That's your minor 7th. But now I'm going to use my other finger just so I can get that B flat down there and play the chord. Very different sound. Right? More of a major sound with that 6 in there. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Just from one finger. All right, so let's keep moving here. Let's talk about this chord. Right? So if you were to play, you don't have to use any fingers for this. If you were to play all of the open strings, that's a chord. Most people say, oh no, that's just the open strings. If you think about it, right? What do we got? We got E, A, D, G, B, and E. So if we consider the low note our root, that's our E. What are the other notes we need if we skip? So E, we skip F or F sharp, we go to some sort of a G, right? Well, we got a G, not a G sharp, but a G in here. So if E is the first, G would be the 3rd, the minor 3rd. and we have a B. So if we play the E, the G, and the B strings just by themselves, that's an E minor triad. Now we have a D note. So that's a E minor seventh. Now we have a high E string. That's just a double the E. So if we play everything but the A string, it's just an E minor seventh chord. But now the A, that's the fourth in the key of E, but it's also the 11th. When you start using it as, if you go to the next octave and you use it as an ornament to the chord. So this sound of just strumming your strings open is an E minor 11th chord. Now this is one finger chords. We can get that at the 12th fret by barring all the way across with our first finger. How about that? Sounds familiar. Sounds a little like a Yes song that I've heard before. E minor 11th. And you can start to use this just straight across. You can do kind of a minor blues with it. So if this is E, what's the 4 chord we go to in the key of E? A. There's A minor 11th. That's just my first finger at the 5th fret. Back to the 12th fret. How about the 5 chord minor? That's going to be a B minor. So we're using minor 11th chords for each of these and getting a really cool kind of jazzier sounding blues out of this, minor blues. There's a 1 chord, 4 chord, and the 5 chord. This is just taking my finger on a standard tuned guitar all the way across and getting one of my favorite chords, the minor 11th chord. Told you it would be not just for beginners there. Okay, so I hope you had a good time hanging out with me today. Hope you got some ideas about how you can really get some cool chords just by using one finger. What's the next best step for you after that? If you're having any kind of problems getting your chords to sound right, download my guide to clear sounding chords so you can learn all the basics and every adjustment that you need to play clean and clear guitar chords. It's over at playguitaracademy.com/chord guide. And the link is in the description. And I'm going to call it. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you have benefited from this podcast, please leave a favorable Apple Podcast review. It is the best way to make sure that we get this very valuable content to more guitarists around the world. And if more help, structure, and results in your guitar playing sound good, what are you waiting for? Head over to Play Guitar Academy, join the world's most exciting and carefully planned guitar system, and together we will build your online home base for guitar. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next episode.